Imposter syndrome and anxiety, a creative's dream. Yeah, I know. It's an oxymoron, isn't it? But what if feeling like a fraud actually means that you are truly aligned with what it takes to be a creative person? I know it sounds like a bit of a backwards connotation, but there's a lot of truth behind it. All right, so bear with me, and you'll soon see. There are actually some very famous people too that I'm going to use as examples towards the end of this, just to emphasize how being anxious or having imposter syndrome or any other mental barrier for that matter can actually be turned into a positive if you know how to look at it. It usually involves you having to successfully work towards finding a way to live with it and work past it. But once you start doing that, you can actually also learn how to leverage it. And that's what I want to touch on in this video. Something I've had to do personally. Well, not had to do, but have done. And I'm very happy with the outcome, as are others that I know that have been in similar situations. So my name's Carl, and if this video didn't already sort of sum it up in its first little bit, I help the anxious to find their mental clarity, which in turn helps them gain their creative confidence moving forward. So if you're new here, hello. And if you're coming back, hello. Thank you for being here. Okay, so this came to mind pretty quickly, so I haven't had a chance to really formulate the discussion piece in my mind succinctly. So if it's okay, I'm just going to refer to my notes and read from them. I understand it takes my eye away from you a little bit from time to time, and I apologize for that. But it was just, I've been sick for the last 4 weeks, which has impacted my level of video or amount of videos and poor quality videos, unfortunately, due to my illness that have come out recently. So I really wanted to get out while the weather was awesome and get a few videos done. And this came to mind at the last minute. So forgive me. Okay, so imposter syndrome as a sign of growth. Feeling like a fraud often means that you're stretching into unfamiliar territory. Yes, it makes sense. But that is exactly where creative breakthroughs happen. Think about that for a minute, okay? If you feel like an imposter, it's not proof that you're a fake, it's proof that you're expanding. It's so true, because you can't learn something new without trying to get there. And sometimes you've just got to make that first step into that room that you've never stepped foot into before. You feel like you shouldn't be there, you don't belong there, but how else can you learn what's past that point if you don't make that first step? All right, so it is a sign of growth, 110%. That's where we need to turn that imposter syndrome feeling into a positive. Don't get stuck on the negative connotation. In fact, bypass that and spend more time thinking about that positive vibe and that positive view, and the fact that, well, it's just a form of learning, and that's all I'm doing here is learning. So don't beat yourself up on that imposter syndrome piece. Okay, and then next one, anxiety as a creative sensitivity. Okay, that sounds a bit woo-woo maybe, but bear with me, because I feel this, right? Anxiety often means you're deeply attuned to people, ideas, risks, and nuances, all right? Which is true. That's what makes you anxious. You're focusing about the what ifs, what if they don't like me? What if they don't like what my material is about? What if they don't like my delivery? All of these things. And then it starts spiraling, right? Because those are the things that we focus on, but in a negative space, right? And then they start spiraling out of control. What we can do is take that same level of sensitivity, right, and reframe it as caring, right? We do that because we care about their opinion. We care about it too much, but we care about what they will think. And that's an important thing to take with you, especially doing this when your viewer is everything. And so if you're getting anxious about, putting yourself out there, It's like, yeah, but by putting yourself out there, it shows that you're caring about that person. You need to reframe it. You give it some thought and consideration. You may still have the occasional panic attack, lapse, anxiety attacks, I should say, sorry, or lapse in focus because of that, and that's just how we're wired. But if we can, when we do have that quiet time, to rethink it and go, hang on a minute, that's right. It's actually it's a form of creative sensitivity. It's a creative plus that I can add to this. And so work with that. All right? Your anxiety is not a flaw. It's a sign you feel deeply. That's what I was just saying. You care. And it's a creative strength. Okay, number 3, imposter thoughts as integrity checks. Imposter thoughts as integrity checks. Okay, what I mean by that is that questioning, well, not questioning, but the fact that you have these imposter feelings or level of thoughts that you're not good enough, you don't belong there, etc. That's actually the deeper lying level of that is the fact that you care, and I mentioned this before, you care about how you'll come across and you care about delivering value, all right? And in actual fact, the people most worried about being fake often are the most authentic. And what do I mean by that? Well, those that, we can use entertainment as an example, and there's nothing to take away from that genre. But in the entertainment space, or videos-wise, there's a lot of glam, bling, flashy, filmography going on there. And this is not to label every form of entertainment in that space, but you will have forms of entertainment and people there that are very unauthentic, or inauthentic, I should say. They're not being themselves because portraying a character or acting out something else is actually what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to be. So they would not ever want to be themselves doing what they do, all right? They don't need that level of authenticity. But for those of us that do, and we have that imposter syndrome, which is us thinking of ourselves as potentially being fake in the eyes of others, it's like, well, if we're worried about that, it means we're more inclined to be ourselves because we want to do everything in our power to not appear and not feel, not look like anyone else. We just want to be us. Okay. Number 4, another one, overthinking as depth, not delay. All right. And what I mean by that is, like, when you overthink, you get caught up in your thoughts so much that it'll delay you actually doing the thing, right? Or even stop you from doing the thing, all right? So rather than that, and that's the default, right? There's a negative connotation with overthinking. We want to put a positive spin on that, a positive connotation, which is the viewing it as a form of deep thinking as opposed to delayed thinking, right? Or thinking that will cause a delay. So by thinking of it as depth, right? I just want to read this bit. Anxious creatives often overthink because they see too many angles, right? Too many options and different ways of doing things. That depth, though, can lead to more layered storytelling and empathetic insight, all right? So another short way of looking at it is your overthinking isn't a block. It's a well, like a pool of creative complexity, So your overthinking isn't a block, right? It's a form of creative complexity. Why do I trip up over that word? Your overthinking isn't a block, it's a well of creative complexity. So it's hard to picture this and put it into practice at the time. These are all things that you're going to have to reflect on later. Okay, so it happens. We are stuck in the cycle of not having the control at the time. But the more that we think back to a positive connotation, even if it's a portion of that negative episode we've suffered, so in this case, overthinking, where we didn't do that thing on that day because we thought about it too much, or we didn't release it that day because, it wasn't perfect enough, or we weren't perfect enough, for whatever reason. All right. It's to then go back to that and go, yeah, I thought about it, but what are the positives to take out of what I was thinking? Okay. Yeah, and of course that way of thinking would give me extra layers, extra structure, extra ways of attacking it, you know. And if you're someone like me, when you finally find that positive way of doing things and reflect on the negatives, then reflecting on that also can give you other storylines. You know, I've got ideas listed in a spreadsheet of times when I've thought about things like this. I rewatch my video and I go, yeah, but yesterday I was thinking like that. Isn't it amazing? What if I put those two together and there's a video I can record about that? And I can see my channel becoming more and more like that as time goes by. The more videos I release, and knowing what's going on behind the scenes with my anxiety and finally getting over the line, that can then itself become another story again, okay? So just something to bear in mind too, depending on what you want to do with your creative space. And the last comment I had actually here was, what if you are an imposter? That's okay. Sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? But at the end of the day, we're all winging it to a degree. You know, I had to become or pretend that I was a content creator to become a content creator. And even now, I still don't view myself as a content creator because I'm not successful. I haven't released that many videos. That's cool. A couple of ducks just came flying in at a rate of knots and splashed into the water there. But the key is to just, you got to put yourself in that position to start, all right? And the more you just tell yourself that it's okay to be in that space, and you have to refer to yourself as a content creator to become one and to get it over the line. You've got to start somewhere, right? So we're all winging it. And the sooner that you embrace the fact that no matter what we do, it's always going to be a work in progress, because there's always something we can improve on. Perfection's unattainable. So everything is a work in progress, all right? Being an imposter isn't the end, it's the beginning of creative freedom. Bit of a woo line I put in the end there. Okay, so if any of that is resonated with you and rings a bell, by all means, smash that like and subscribe button. It goes a long way to helping my channel out. But we're not done yet, okay? I'm now going to give some examples of some very high-profile people that you may or may not have already known suffer from the likes of, you know, imposter syndrome, anxiety, or any other barriers that we've mentioned throughout this video and any other videos. These were some that, I definitely knew about these, okay? So we've got Lady Gaga, right? I'll start off with musicians, okay? So Lady Gaga is probably the biggest high-profile musician that I know that struggled with a lot in regards to anxiety and imposter syndrome, all right? And look at where she's turned out now. Okay, so a famous line from her, I'm just reading from my notes. A famous line from her is, "I still sometimes feel like a loser kid in high school. I just have to pick myself up and tell myself I'm a superstar every morning." Because it's true. So it's sort of the other way around now that she's famous. She still wants to refer to herself as that poor kid, when in reality she is a superstar, and she's got every right to call herself that and refer to herself as that. Lady Gaga has spoken openly about trauma, anxiety, and imposter syndrome over the years. Her raw honesty shaped her art, connected her to millions, and fueled her advocacy for mental health through her Born This Way Foundation. If you didn't know that she'd set that up, awesome lady. Love her to bits. That's just awesome. And then another musician you may or not know suffers severely from anxiety, and that's Adele. All right, she literally is having panic attacks before and even sometimes during her show. She gets intense stage fright still to this day. So her anxiety is a big deal. But you know what? I don't know if you've ever seen her perform live, but she is so in tune with her audience and loves them to bits and gets emotional when they do, right? Or when someone just outright loves her music so much that they're up and dancing and singing away, she will shed a tear because she's fighting those barriers that would normally stop her in her tracks or stop others in their tracks from doing the thing and doing that thing. And that's what makes it all that more worthwhile. You know, I'm nowhere near that scale, but I get it. And that's what I feel. When I get a great comment on any of my videos, I know that this is what I should be doing with my what little spare time I get, because I can help somebody and I can make some level of impact. And you can too, 100%. Everyone's got that in them. A couple of others. Emma Watson, famous actress, okay? You may know her as Hermione in Harry Potter, all right? Now, a line of hers is it's almost like the better I do, the more my feeling of inadequacy actually increases. That's predominantly in her time in Harry Potter, because that series went on for a long time. We saw her grow up from a little girl to a young woman, but she suffered anxiety and fear of being truly seen all the way through that, knowing that when Harry Potter finished, what was going to happen? What was the real her that was going to come out? It's almost like she had created a bit of a level of defense with that, or shielding around her in regards to being that character, but knowing in the future she's going to have to hang up the towel in regards to Harry Potter, what's going to happen then? And that's something that she's battled with a lot, but she's been continued as a successful actor and activist and wonderful woman, okay, throughout all of that. Another, an oldie but a goodie, classic, and that's Albert Einstein. All right. Now this is, might have to read this twice or pause it and come back and watch it. But this is a quote from himself, right? He says, "The exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler." Einstein struggled to internalize his genius, all right? But his discomfort with ego and authority helped him think differently, all right? It created radical breakthroughs in science. So because he was actually quite introverted, all right, on top of all of this, but he just felt uncomfortable with his fame, which was brought about from him sharing his knowledge. But he couldn't not share his knowledge. But he would share his knowledge in bursts, right? And whenever he was out of the public eye, he was relaxing. He was just thinking. That's what he did a lot of. And that's what makes him so amazingly unique, is that he had a great mind on him. And if it wasn't for the fact that he just needed to share, we may not have known half the stuff that he came up with, So his theory of relativity and just his amazing ability to see things in, quantum mechanics and physics, etc. Not that I'm far from science, but, he's done some amazing things for us as people in the advancement of humankind in good ways. And it was all for his persistence in finding a way past it. And that was that he had to help people, had to share that information, despite his unease with anxiety. And that was his way of dealing with that. Was to focus on thinking and coming up with what he was sharing, and then blurt it all out once. So hopefully you got something out of that. If it resonated with you, like I said earlier, please like and subscribe. I need all the help I can get to help as many people as I can. And if you're new here, thank you, welcome. And if you're returning, you're always welcome. And until next time, look after yourself.